This problem will introduce to you how we will apply multi-step conversions. So this particular example is based on units of the metric system. So we have learned in the metric system, there's certain prefixes that relate each one of the units to each other within the metric system, okay? So we want to apply those relationships to each other to be able to convert between the units. So let's begin with 15.9 millimeters and convert it to kilometers. Do we know off the top of our head the direct relationship between millimeters and kilometers? No, what we have learned is what each prefix means. We know that there are 1,000 millimeters in 1 meter, right? And we also know that there are 1,000 meters in 1 kilometer. So just by knowing the prefixes that we learned, we are going to use these as conversion factors. So we're going to convert each equivalence into conversion factors to be able to take this into a multiple step conversion. So remember we said that every equivalence will have 2 conversion factors. So when we say 1,000 millimeters equals to 1 meter, this is 1,000 millimeters per 1 meter, or 1 meter per 1,000 millimeters. The same can be applied to the second equivalence. 1,000 meters per 1 kilometer, or 1 kilometer per 1,000 meters, okay? So as you gain more practice in dimensional analysis, you do not always have to write out every single conversion factor for every equivalence. It's going to just come naturally by setting up the units. But for right now, I want you to get in this habit of remembering conversion factors. You must apply conversion factors when doing dimensional analysis. So that's why I want to go through each one of these steps, okay? So now that we know the relationships between these units, and we know the different conversion factors that can be used, the next step is to begin with what is our given information. What are we looking to start with, and what are we going to convert it to? So we're going to start with 15.9 millimeters. Okay, so I'm going to make us a plan here. Okay, so if we're going to start with 15.9 millimeters, now we know that there's 1,000 millimeters in 1 meter. And then we know that there's 1,000 meters in 1 kilometer. So we can convert millimeters to meters, and then meters to kilometers. Okay. So that's going to be our plan. That's going to be what will be the multiple step conversion. So we see that we're going to need 2 conversion factors in this setup. Okay. Start with your given information, 15.9 millimeters. I'm going to try a different color here. That's not going to work. 15.9 millimeters. Okay, that is our starting point. Now, whenever we set up a conversion factor, we focus on the units first. So anytime you're doing dimensional analysis, ignore the numbers until you have the units set up. So units, we must always cancel diagonally in order to achieve desired units. So in our first step to go from millimeters to meters, we need to choose a conversion factor that's going to have millimeters on the bottom and meters on top to allow us to cancel diagonally. So looking over here, I see that I would need to choose this conversion factor. 1,000 millimeters on the bottom and 1 meter on top. Okay, so that is your first conversion to meters. Now your second conversion is going to be going to kilometers. So now in this next step, we look to see what unit do we have and what unit do we want. So whatever unit that we are starting with or that we have, we want to cancel to get to the unit that we desire. So our desired units is kilometers. So I want to put that here on top. And the unit that we're going to cancel is the meter. So that's going to go on the bottom. Which one of the conversion factors are we going to use? So again, we're going to identify this conversion factor with 1 kilometer on top and 1,000 millimeters on the bottom. So now to do the math here, we're going to do 15.9 divided by 1,000 divided by 1,000. So remember, you focus on your units first, then you do the math. So 15.9 divided by 1,000 divided by 1,000 again. That value, if you have a calculator, it might be easier to do right now. But when we divide by 1,000 divided by 1,000, that's basically going to be moving the decimal place over 6 places to the left, pretty much. Okay, because we're dividing by 1,000 twice. Okay, because each time we divide by 1,000, we're moving the decimal 3 places to the left. So that's going to give us 0.0000159 kilometers. Okay, let's just double check, just because I don't want to be moving ahead with a wrong number. Yes, that is correct. Now, this is a very small number with lots of zeros here. What can we do to be able to condense it? We can use scientific notation. We can write this in scientific notation as 1.59 times 10. Now, if it's less than 1, it's going to have a negative exponent. How many places are we going to need to move the decimal? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places to the right, -5 kilometers. Okay. So that's going to be our final answer in this multi-step conversion. Okay. So of course we know that in the metric system, everything is in based on powers of 10. Okay, so each one of the prefixes have some form of, power of 10 that separates them. But I still want you to just apply what we've learned in the prefixes to set up using dimensional analysis. We don't want to just be moving the decimal back and forth, because that doesn't help us to fully understand what the relationships are between the units. Okay, so make sure that you apply the equivalences that we learned for the prefixes and split it up into multiple step conversions if necessary. So in this case, we had 2 steps.